So Skyrim was one of the breakout hits of last year, and certainly probably the biggest RPG of this generation. I imagine there's going to be a lot of people interested in checking out the Elder Scrolls Online. When they arrive, what are they going to find?
Good question. Well, I think what they're going to find is a game that is both the Elder Scrolls lore that you're familiar with, but really brought into this new setting, this online space. And you should be comfortable with what you find there, because it's really a game that is accessible to anyone, right? It isn't, let's say, sort of a slower paced combat that is from a previous generation of MMOs. Like, we really went the full bore into making it feel responsive, tactical, and actiony, which is, I really feel like what a Skyrim player would expect out of this type of game. But really, any game player is looking for that, and that's what you'll find when you start doing the gameplay. There's a few different things, a few different parts of our philosophy that I feel really good about. One is that we have a smaller number of abilities that you can do at any one time, but that each one and your choice of when to use them is extremely meaningful. Instead of having a full bar of buttons that you're supposed to hit in a very specific order, sort of regardless of what you're fighting, what we wanted to create was an interaction with monsters and with other players, whatever you're fighting, where, okay, you're going to throw up some sort of shield, so let me cope with that by trying to whittle it down, and then you might be aware of that, so you'll counter it in your own way. And we basically create this interplay in the combat, which is exciting and tactical, rather than my gear equals this number of damage and your gear equals this number of damage, and so you win. One of our big philosophies from the very beginning is play the world, not the UI. We love the way it looks. I mean, I hope that really comes across in the theater. And we feel like you should be looking at the world, right? All the information you need for monsters. What should I do? How should I defend? When should I defend? Do I get out of the way? All of that is told to you in the game so that I don't have to look at numbers or random avoidance chances or heavily into stats. They exist to a certain extent because those sorts of things are where a lot of your depth and progression comes from. But as far as playing the actual game goes, you generally just look at the world and play it, and that's what we want to create. The number of times that someone at our studio will be like, hey, here's this location in Skyrim, and here's this location in our game, and they're identical. You can't tell the difference. It's really nice. I think our environments are just mind-boggling. Our characters have some different I guess, feel to them than the Skyrim characters, largely because of the need to get so many on screen, and also because of being able to sort that out in sort of a large-scale battle, being able to identify different races. And so that we have, in that way, we have some more stylized look. But I feel like the environment itself is so engaging and so similar that it's just really exciting to me. When I run around in our game, I feel like I'm in an Elder Scrolls world every time. As far as our sort of overall goals and scopes go, we want to make an incredible MMO that really defines the genre. That's always been our target and our goal. And it's a big task, but I feel like we started from the very beginning with a really experienced team, starting with Matt Firewright, our game director, who's been in MMOs forever. And across the board, the whole team is just full of Elder Scrolls fans and experienced MMO developers. And that's what it takes, a lot of really good people in a long time. Our game isn't really just about making a great MMO. It's about making this incredible game that's a combination of what you expect in a single-player Skyrim game, but also in a multiplayer, large-scale environment. And we play all the games we can. We want to see what's out there, what's the expectation, because that's where the industry is going. It's really real, and it's important that we deliver on what is the modern game.
So you've got a beta coming up. What are the things you, as the combat guy, are particularly looking forward to discovering from the beta when you see people let loose on it?
What am I looking forward to? I can tell you what, the moment when, I've seen it happen a number of times in the office, but really when players start to do this, when you start to do these unusual builds and combinations, right? One of the things we really let you do in our system of combat is choose your own sort of style of play, right? You can use any weapon effectively regardless of what class you are. Right? And so a person who's sort of picked a more traditional mage caster type class and is sitting there in light robe armor, I've seen that used completely effectively with a two-handed axe, right? The guy just teleports in and starts mashing people and is shooting out storms, and it's amazing, and it's something we totally didn't expect, except that it's exactly what we want, right? We want players in our game figuring out combinations of weapons and class abilities and sort of playing with their friends in a way that is just develops this really open feel of our system, and that's what we get when we get this sort of multiplayer feel combined with that single-player progression. I think this is one of the great things about a three-faction system, right? And we've seen this in other games as well. Many of former sort of employees work on Dark Age of Camelot, and we saw this happen, is that when one faction becomes dominant, well, guess what? There's two other factions, and even if you do have a numerical advantage, when two factions are attacking you, well, that's when it gets pretty hard. You're dealing with all these different fronts. But then what you find is, as soon as they've sort of been beaten back, that alliance breaks down and a new one forms. And that's the beauty of the three-faction system, is it really, it's super hard to dominate for a long period of time, which is, exactly great for sort of trying to crown an emperor, right? It's difficult to do and it's difficult to maintain. We, from the very beginning, have been building a game for the long run. And the progression reflects that in terms of classes and the plans for content and the plans for our end game raid and PvP systems all reflect a long-term goal, because that's really what people want out of their sort of their MMO environment, right? Is something they can get invested in for a long period of time. And so all of our philosophy is based around that.